The day I found out Ethan Joe was cheating, I marched straight to the mistress's place with my 8-month pregnant belly. Vivian Y seemed to realize I was there to cause trouble, and she quickly lifted a mop to keep her distance from me. But by then, I had already lost all sense of reason. I grabbed a bucket of paint and splashed it at her, then turned to her wall and wrote 8 huge characters that basically meant, "A homewrecker deserves punishment." I was so furious, I even wrote one of the characters wrong, and the next second, I was taken to the police station. When the officers saw how big my belly was, they really didn't want to lay a hand on me. Honestly, even I couldn't bring myself to do anything rough in this condition. I was 8 months along. Everything was already set in stone. Ethan no longer bothered to pretend. He was just waiting for the baby to be born so he could throw me out with nothing. I thought I was already cornered with no way out, but I never imagined that this 8-month pregnancy would end up becoming my shield. When Ethan rushed in, he walked right into the scene of Vivian completely covered in paint, and me stained all over as well. His face twisted in rage. "Grace Jung, you're out of your damn mind. You actually threw paint? Are you mentally ill?" I met his gaze, my emotions slipping out of control. "Yeah, maybe I am crazy," I said. "But that's because you, a shameless scumbag, and this cheap woman drove me insane." Then I turned toward the officers. "As you've just seen, these two have long been flaunting their filthy affair in broad daylight without the slightest shame. So tell me, how many years can they get for being this shameless?" One of the officers let out a slow sigh. "Ma'am, we completely understand how you feel, but emotional disputes fall under moral issues. They aren't within our jurisdiction." What the hell is that supposed to mean? I could hardly believe what I was hearing. A cheating scumbag and a mistress get to act like laws don't exist and you're saying you can't do anything? "That's how it is," the officer explained patiently. "Situations like this have to be resolved through a lawsuit." "Fine," I said. "Got it, then I'll see you in court." I was about to leave when Vivian's sharp voice rang out behind me. "Stop. You must compensate me for emotional damages and property losses. Otherwise, you're not leaving." I stared at the officer with the cap in disbelief, but he nodded seriously. "Yes, any damage done to another person's property must be compensated according to the law." My stomach dropped. So this was what they meant by trying to steal a chicken only to lose the rice. It fit me perfectly. I took a long breath, forcing down the despair threatening to break me. "Sorry," I said. "I really don't have any assets. Everything I had was already transferred away by this scumbag. Yesterday, he was even planning how to trick me into mortgaging the 2 houses we bought after we got married." My gaze fell on Ethan's face, and I curled my lips into a cold smile. "How about this? Let him sell his gold to pay the damages. No way I'm covering this for free." The room fell silent instantly. Even the officer with the cap blushed. Right? Why talk about shame when the most shameless person was standing right there? In the end, Ethan signed the mediation agreement with his face dark as thunder. The officer with the cap also sternly criticized me, saying I had to apologize and restore Vivian's reputation. I knew he was doing it to protect me in his own way, but it still hurt. The moment I stepped out of the police station, Ethan's furious voice hit me head-on. "Grace, listen carefully. This is the first and last time. If you dare harass Vivian again, I guarantee you won't get a single cent in the divorce. Everything under my name is debt right now. I've got nothing to lose. If you're smart when we divorce, I might still consider giving you one place to live. But if you're not, don't blame me for being ruthless." As I looked at his twisted expression, then at the mocking, taunting look in Vivian's eyes behind him, a surge of blood rushed straight to my head. My vision went dark, and I nearly collapsed on the spot. Neither of them cared about how I felt. They just turned around and walked away without looking back. Was this really the end of the road for me? I lowered my head, placed a hand on my belly, and shook it gently. No, not yet. For the past 6 months, Ethan had constantly brought up how the company was struggling. Not only had he stopped giving our household even a penny, he had also taken my dowry. Every piece of jewelry, and all the gold I received when we got married, saying he needed them to keep the business running. I believed him the first time. I believed him the second time. But when the same excuse keeps repeating, even the slowest person would start to question it. So when he suddenly suggested mortgaging the houses we bought after the wedding, every alarm in my body went off. The private investigator came back with results that confirmed my worst fears. During the most difficult months of my pregnancy, he was indeed maintaining a secret relationship with another woman. But aside from that conclusion, we found almost nothing else. No large transfers, no proof of expensive gifts, not even a single photo of them walking side by side. If I hadn't managed to plant a tracker in his car, I wouldn't have even known where that woman lived. Maybe Ethan had no real strengths in life, but he was excellent at covering his tracks. So where did all our marital assets go? The next day, I took a carefully prepared banner and headed straight to Ethan's company. If I wasn't allowed to confront the mistress anymore, then I could still confront the scumbag himself. When the receptionist tried to stop me, I walked steadily across the office floor, and under dozens of staring eyes, I unfurled the bright red banner. It read, CEO Ethan Joe funds mistress, shirks family responsibilities, even refuses to pay his pregnant wife's medical bills. Such dedication deserves recognition. The entire office fell silent. Ethan burst out of a conference room, his face turning the color of pig liver. Grace Jung, have you completely lost your damn mind? Security. Get her out of here right now. But the security guards exchanged looks, their eyes landing on my belly that was clearly close to dew. None of them dared to touch me. Yes, I was absolutely capable of causing trouble. A desperate woman with nothing left to lose could do anything. I slowly shifted my gaze to Ethan. I'm sick, right? Fine. If I can't go after her, then I'll come after you. Your company's struggling, isn't it? Even my dowry has gone into your so-called operations. Maybe it's better if you just shut this place down early. He raised his hand sharply, but froze halfway, because I was holding up my phone, recording. Faced with me on the verge of losing control, he had no choice but to stall. He swore everything was fabricated, promised he would come home tonight without fail. But the moment he turned around, he called my parents, dramatically claiming that my emotions were unstable and implying that I might harm myself, urging them to come immediately. When I saw my parents rushing toward me, dusty and exhausted, the tight string in my chest finally loosened. In that moment, I believed with absolute certainty that parents are always a child's strongest support, no matter what. That kind of strength has nothing to do with money. Since the beginning of my pregnancy, I had wanted my mom to come stay with me, but Ethan kept insisting he wasn't comfortable living with elders, and refused every single time. Now that I was about to give birth, I needed my parents more than ever. This was the first step of my plan. With my daughter being cared for tenderly by my parents, I could finally set aside every worry. The night before I gave birth, I organized every detail of what Ethan had done and wrote it into a statement. Then I sent the open letter to his family group chat, his company's internal chat, his corporate email, and posted it simultaneously on Greenbook, FlickTalk, and Weblog. This was, without a doubt, the biggest public exposure his carefully crafted personal image had ever received. After sending everything out, I calmly turned off my phone and focused on waiting for the baby to arrive. With my parents by my side, I didn't even need to inform Ethan. The real battle would only begin after the child was safely born. Everyone kept telling me that even for the child's sake, I shouldn't make such a decisive break. If he went bankrupt, how could the child possibly benefit? But that kind of advice only applies to men who have even a shred of conscience. As for a shameless man like Ethan, he would probably prefer that my baby and I disappear immediately. All I needed to do now was wait for the right moment, until he showed up at the hospital. When he finally arrived and saw the son he had supposedly been looking forward to, he didn't show even a hint of concern. Instead, he rushed straight to me, grabbed my wrist and barked, "Grace, you're going to delete everything you put online. Right now. If you don't blame me for what I'll do." I lifted my eyes at him coolly. "Sure, I'll delete everything if you return my entire dowry, every piece of wedding jewelry, and all the assets you secretly transferred. Not a penny less." Ethan narrowed his eyes and suddenly flung my hand away. "If you insist on tearing things apart, then don't blame me. The company is over $4 million in debt. Both houses must be used to pay it off. The only thing I can do for you is make sure you don't have to tend on any of the debt. If you agree, sign this." He threw a divorce agreement in front of me. Every word on that paper made it crystal clear that he wanted me to leave with absolutely nothing. So this was the grand ending he had prepared for our 8-year marriage. I let out a long breath, and the last trace of hesitation in my heart disappeared. He was in such a rush. Did I already lose all value to him? I curled my lips into a faint smile. "Don't forget, the house I bought before marriage is under our daughter's name." Ethan let out a cold snort. "You don't even have a job, and you still think you'll get custody? Both kids stay with me." I see. When I thought the situation couldn't get any worse, he proved that yes, it absolutely could. This man was still pushing the boundaries of how low a person could go. In the next second, I picked up the divorce agreement and tore it into pieces. "Sorry," I said. "I don't accept this. If you've got the guts, go ahead and sue me." His lips trembled with rage, and before walking out, he spat one sentence: "Just you wait." Watching his back as he left, my nose stung. I had endured this battle for far too long. On the second day, after I was discharged from the hospital, even while I was still supposed to be resting postpartum, I went to fulfill my promise. Previously, I still owed Miss Lynn a formal apology. So I stood at the entrance of her apartment complex with a loudspeaker in hand and started a live stream at the same time. Since the police had told me to restore her reputation, I naturally had to do it thoroughly. "Miss Lynn from Building 28, Unit 3, I announced. "I'm sorry. I was wrong. I shouldn't have exposed that you were the mistress my husband was supporting. You worked tirelessly and generously helped my husband overcome his problems with premature ejaculation and erectile dysfunction. I should have thanked you personally, but I foolishly hurt your reputation. Please be magnanimous and forgive my." Before I could finish speaking, the officer with the hat came and took me away again. Coincidentally, it was the same officer as last time. He rubbed his forehead helplessly. "Miss Joan, you just gave birth. Why aren't you at home recovering properly?" I looked at him earnestly. "Well, the previous case hasn't been fully resolved. A person should finish what they start, right?" He sighed deeply. "An apology like that is only meant to give both sides a way out." The officer sighed. "She doesn't want to see you at all anymore. The moment you showed up, she called the police again. You've only made the situation more complicated." I nodded as if I understood. "Then, should I go apologize properly one more time?" "No," he raised a hand to stop me. "For this month, you must stay home and focus on recovering. Taking care of your newborn is your top priority. We will handle the matter of the apology through coordination. For now, let us take you home." This result genuinely surprised me. I never imagined that being a woman who had just given birth could be so useful. For the entire next month, Ethan didn't show up even once. It was as if he'd decided to use cold violence to break me completely. But I didn't stop moving forward. Since this identity gave me a rare moment to breathe, I had to make full use of it, to keep pushing back. As expected, on the very first day after my postpartum month ended, I received a court summons. Ethan had officially filed for divorce, accusing me of abusing our daughter. Not only did he demand to end the marriage, he also wanted custody of both children. I thought this drawn-out divorce battle would last at least 2 years, but I didn't expect him to be this impatient. Clinging to a faint hope, I met with my divorce attorney. "Will they take my children from me?" My lawyer remained silent for a long time before slowly nodding. "Yes." My heart dropped. Just because they were my children didn't mean the law would see them as mine. The truth was harsh. The law doesn't care about emotions. My tears wouldn't earn me a single extra dollar. My sacrifices wouldn't automatically bring sympathy. Only evidence could speak, and the unfortunate truth was, I had nothing. My hands trembled as I looked at the photos Ethan had collected through various means. The woman in those pictures looked unstable, nothing like a normal mother. For these 3 months, I had poured all my remaining energy into fighting a man with no conscience. Now, the boomerang I'd thrown came back and struck me hard. How ironic. As a woman in her final trimester, I had endured humiliation after humiliation, and I didn't even have the right to show how I felt. In court, my lawyer whispered, "Miss Jiang, please stay calm. Their goal is to provoke you so you'll lose control in front of the judge." I wiped my palms, forcing my emotions down. Soon, my lawyer presented the evidence of Ethan's affair. But it wasn't much, and it wasn't enough to prove he had severe moral faults. The other side seemed to have anticipated this. The plaintiff's attorney rose calmly and submitted a stack of audio recordings. Your Honor, the inappropriate actions my client took were the result of years spent in a household filled with verbal abuse and humiliation. The relationship he entered was a temporary emotional escape. Then he presented a series of clear photos and submitted a psychological evaluation report from a counselor. Your Honor, in addition to the police report documenting the bruises found on the child, we have signed testimonies from more than 5 neighbors, confirming that the defendant has long engaged in physical abuse of her daughter, along with persistent psychological harm. My client, this heartbroken father, only made the painful decision to file for divorce after collecting this substantial evidence. His actions are not abandonment, but the truest and most responsible form of fatherly love, to rescue his children from danger. Ethan lifted his brows at me with smug satisfaction, and the moment I saw that expression, my mind buzzed. How ironic, so it was my supposed mood swings that drove him into another woman's arms. Now everyone believed I was unstable, that I had been abusing my child for a long time. I lowered my gaze and let out a soft sigh. Fine, I said. I agree to the divorce. The room fell completely silent. I understand that with my current physical and emotional condition, I may not be able to give the children the best environment, so I'm willing to give up custody. I slowly raised my head and looked straight at Ethan. But I have 2 conditions. First, the plaintiff must hire a senior-level childcare specialist, approved by me after an interview, to take care of our son until he's 3. Second, both houses we bought after the marriage must belong to me. Almost the moment I finished speaking, the opposing lawyer stood up. Your Honor, we strongly object. As the direct custodian of the children, my client requires full protection to provide them a safe and stable environment. We request the court reject the defendant's unreasonable and illogical demands. At that moment, I lifted my chin and gave him a provocative smile. Yes. He finally took the bait. Everything I had endured up to now was for this exact moment. People can look back, but they can't walk back. Anyone who tries is fully responsible. The next second, I pulled out a sheet of paper and handed it to the judge. As you can see, this is a hospital-issued diagnosis of severe postpartum depression. Based on the evidence the plaintiff submitted, it's clear my husband knew about my condition. I looked straight at Ethan. He knew I needed regular checkups. He knew I required extensive treatment. And yet, he hasn't given our household a single penny in 2 years, which is why my condition worsened. And now he's trying to divorce me at the height of my illness. So, does that constitute spousal abandonment under the law? Ethan's eyes widened instantly. No, I didn't know. Stop making things up. I calmly tapped on my phone and played the recording. Grace, you're out of your damn mind. You really threw paint? Are you mentally ill? Yeah, I am mentally ill, thanks to you, you shameless scumbag and that cheap woman. Grace, have you completely lost it? Security, get her out of here. A tear slipped silently down my cheek. So my depression during pregnancy became your excuse to abandon me. Then tell me, when the day comes that you abandon the children, what kind of excuse will you use? The courtroom went completely still. That's right, I said quietly. I admit I left marks on my daughter. The photos show them clearly. That's because I enrolled her in an intensive sparring program for several months, just for today. The judge's eyes widened, but I continued. When the neighbors called the police, my daughter and I were practicing at home. And when the officers phoned Ethan, it took him half an hour to show up, covered in another woman's scent. But so what? I wanted him to lose. Ethan jerked forward, but his attorney quickly grabbed his arm and whispered urgently into his ear. I watched as Ethan's face turned ashen. Then his lawyer raised his hand, no longer as aggressive as before. Your Honor, the plaintiff requests a temporary recess. We would like to consider an out-of-court settlement. I stood there silently, watching his humiliation. Once the words criminal abandonment were placed formally on record, this was no longer just a divorce case. As expected, the moment settlement discussions began, everything fell into deadlock. I wasn't asking for much, just custody of both children, the two marital properties, and $50,000 a month in living expenses. That would be enough. Impossible. Don't even think about it. Ethan cut me off before I even finished. Grace already has a house under her name, plus a large growth fund. There is absolutely no way I'm letting you take that much. My lawyer responded calmly. Mr. Zhou, my client is exercising her legal rights. Given your confirmed infidelity, and the fact that you sought divorce while fully aware of her medical condition and refused to provide support, your actions constitute severe marital fault, including potential abandonment. We have more than enough legal grounds to pursue such a property division plan. Ethan exploded instantly. No, I didn't know her condition was that serious. Now that I know, I won't abandon her at a time like this. So I don't agree to the divorce. After the failed mediation, we returned to the courtroom. The situation was already clear. My lawyer's voice carried more confidence than before. Since the plaintiff has stated he does not wish to divorce, to demonstrate sincerity, we request the following. First, he must pay 1 year's worth of specialized psychological treatment and recovery costs in a lump sum, totaling 500,000 yuan. Second, he must hire a senior childcare specialist, fully paid by him, and the candidate must receive written approval from my client. Third, to further demonstrate sincerity, both marital properties must be used as collateral with mortgage registration. If he files for divorce again, or if the divorce occurs due to his fault, the properties shall be directly used to cover the wife's compensation, damages, and child support. Finally, based on their current standard of living, he must pay 50,000 yuan a month for household expenses, formalized through a marital property agreement and confirmed by the court. Ethan's face turned green. Bullshit. I don't have that kind of money. You're dreaming. I curled my lips slightly. As expected, this was exactly the reaction I anticipated. Then, let's proceed with a third-party forensic audit. I also want to know the full details of your assets over the last 8 years of marriage, and how exactly you ended up with 4 million in debt. If the audit shows you truly lack the ability to pay, then I'll accept it, but if it doesn't, then it proves you fabricated debt and illegally transferred marital assets. The look Ethan gave me was filled with hatred, like he wanted to tear me apart. Fake IOUs, shadow contracts. I hoped the web he'd woven was strong enough to withstand the harshest scrutiny. Yes, ever since discovering his betrayal, I had been waiting for this day. Back when I was close to giving birth, he thought I was too weak to fight back. He fully intended to squeeze out every last drop of value from me and then abandon me without hesitation. I had already seen the ending long ago, so why should I endure it quietly? But what I never expected was that he agreed to the audit without hesitation. That one move completely threw off my calculations. As I walked out of the courtroom, Ethan's eyes were filled with hostility. Grace, you brought this on yourself. A chill ran through me. It was cold, bone deep, and I had to admit, I felt fear in that moment, but we were far past the point of retreat. I had no choice but to bet everything I had left. The auditing team arrived a week later. I had personally seen more than 20 employees in his company. With that scale, there was no way the annual revenue was low. Ethan was smooth, thoughtful, and calculating. He had already prepared mid-autumn gift boxes for the auditors under the company's name, and arranged banquets and night entertainment to host them with meticulous care. And me? Aside from the anxiety twisting in my chest, there was nothing else I could do. They didn't even want me tagging along to keep them company. They thought I was too old. 3 days later, the audit report came out, and the results were shocking. The bad news was that the company's situation was far worse than I'd imagined. The current volume of business could barely support a team of 20 people. All the long-term corporate partners from the past had already cut ties. With operations this bleak, of course they couldn't find any more hidden assets. The good news was that, out of the more than 4 million in alleged debt, the auditors only found a little over 2 million that actually existed. The rest, most likely, hadn't had time to be fabricated into the books yet. Based on the cash flow records, the company wasn't making big profits, but it was more than capable of covering basic household expenses. A new round of mediation started. After several rounds of back and forth, the conditions were finally set. My treatment fund was reduced to 200,000 yuan. The collateralized properties were cut down to just one house, and living expenses were set at 10,000 yuan per month. All of this was written into a formal marital agreement. Being able to secure these terms was already an unexpected win. But after the signing was done, I raised one last request. Since the company is in such poor condition, as the spouse of a shareholder, do I have the right to ask the auditors to review the current staffing? It's obvious the headcount far exceeds what's actually needed. Ethan's face went dark instantly. You think a company is some kind of game? You say fire people and we just fire them? Who's paying all the penalties and severance? My voice stayed calm. Ethan, you and I both know that when a company is in trouble, appropriate economic layoffs are the responsible thing to do. As for breach penalties, they only apply to core executives who are still under contract. You know better than I do how many true core people your company actually has. For most regular employees, paying them the standard N+1 severance is enough according to the law. He was at a loss for words. I leaned in slightly. More importantly, right now you can't even afford your wife's living expenses, but you're still trying to support an unprofitable team. How do you think the judge will interpret that contradiction? As simple mismanagement, or as an intentional scheme to hollow out the company and shift profits? By now, I was no longer the woman who believed any excuse he made. Everything in this world can lie, except the leverage in your hand and the numbers on a ledger. Those never lie. With that, this long standoff finally reached a turning point. For the first time in almost 2 years, money from my husband landed in our family account as living support. Next, it was time for the war between me and that woman. I went to Ethan's company several times, but I never once saw the mistress. That was enough to prove she didn't work there. Yet the place she lived was in one of the city's most expensive luxury communities. If she were just a disposable affair, there was no way a shrewd man like Ethan would buy her such an expensive home, unless she had some special skills no one knew about. For example, knowing how to help Ethan legally hide marital assets. If that was the case, then she was a pro. Using the address the private investigator gave me, I headed straight for her company. The moment I stepped out of the car and saw where it was, a thought struck me like lightning. I might have just found where our joint assets had gone. What a cruel joke. Her company was practically right next to Ethan's office building, just 1 block away. Even better, their business scopes were almost identical. But the legal representative and shareholders of her company had nothing to do with Ethan on paper. And the previous audit had already shown that the two companies had no formal business connections at all. That made things tricky. Without evidence, I had no way to intervene or launch an official investigation. So once again, I pulled out my trump card. A brand new banner lay in my hands, its bright red satin shimmering with 8 large gold characters. Miraculous hands restore life, saved my husband's dog life. This time, I came specifically to express my gratitude. After all, my previous apology had been interrupted, and I needed to finish what I started. When the receptionist saw the rolled-up banner, she quickly escorted me to a meeting room. The moment she stepped out, I got up immediately and began searching for Vivian Y's office. Before long, I found her in the innermost room. The moment I pushed the door open, everyone inside froze. Clearly, she was in the middle of a business negotiation. I curved my lips slightly. "Miss Wei, sorry to interrupt." Then I unfurled the banner in front of everyone, making sure my voice carried through the entire room. "I'm here today for 2 things. First, an apology." I clasped my hands together, speaking sincerely. Last time I wasn't in a stable emotional state and acted impulsively. I said nonsense about you being my husband Ethan Zhou's mistress and caused you trouble. I'm truly sorry. Shut up. Vivian shot to her feet and lunged toward me. But now that I'd already given birth, my body was lighter and faster. I sidestepped her easily. And second, my thanks. I circled around the table and placed the banner right on the lap of her client. Thank you for taking such thoughtful care of my husband during my difficult pregnancy. You really did work miracles and saved his dog life. You handled all his years of impotence and erectile dysfunction with absolute professionalism. You've earned every word on that banner. A beat passed before the employees at the door finally reacted. Security. Someone help. I quickly continued before they dragged me out. I came here to communicate properly. Don't start acting like you're about to unleash attack dogs on me. Oh, and Miss Wei, I found out your company and my husband Ethan's company have identical business scopes, and they happen to be right next door. What a coincidence. We should collaborate more, don't you think? Otherwise, it just wouldn't make sense, would it? Before I could finish, 2 guards lifted me from both sides and carried me out. That woman really was a tough bone to crack, and once again, I was brought to the police station for tea. Day after day, why was it so hard for a legal wife to seek justice? This time, it was a different hat-wearing officer. But he was definitely handsome too. Still, his reaction was exactly the same, fingers pressed to his brow. Miss Jung, I've heard this isn't your first time causing trouble for them. I felt a little embarrassed, but not too much. Heaven and earth can testify, I went with sincerity both times. How was I supposed to know that woman would want an apology one moment and reject it the next? So does she want it or not? He asked with a sigh. Regardless of the reason, he continued, disturbing normal business operations multiple times means we have to handle this by law. That under public security regulations, we can detain you or issue a fine. I immediately caved. Don't detain me, please. My baby is still little. Fine me. A fine is fine. He nodded. The specific amount will be determined after Miss Y's lawyer arrives for negotiation. I nodded obediently. Okay. I'm willing to pay more than the legal minimum. After all, as a mistress, she must have been struggling financially to interfere with someone else's marriage. I should help however I can. The officer looked at me seriously. What are you planning now? I ducked my head shyly. Hey, you caught me. I just have too much money to spend. Under the soft mediation room lighting, I finally signed the compensation agreement, my hand trembling, after all, seeing that 800,000 yuan compensation amount. My legs really did feel a little weak. Vivian Y's lawyer had a faint, barely suppressed smile at the corner of his lips. In his eyes, I must have looked like a completely irrational wife digging my own grave. Even my own lawyer had hesitated several times during our previous conversations, wanting to say something but holding back. In the end, all he offered was a long sigh. Miss Jiang, look forward. In the future, you must control your emotions. Don't let small things cost you big opportunities. Everyone thought that after all the chaos I caused, I had merely staged a loud but pointless farce, one that only confirmed their belief that I was mentally unstable. When Ethan heard about what happened, he even called to mock me. Grace, you really are sick in the head. You belong in a psychiatric hospital, not growling like a crazy dog outside someone's company. I simply let out a light laugh. What's wrong with a crazy dog? You shouldn't underestimate one. He had no idea that what I bought wasn't peace of mind. It was a ticket straight into the heart of their secrets. After signing the agreement, I didn't retreat or collapse the way everyone expected. Instead, I immediately had my lawyer send a formal request to Vivian's company regarding the compensation settlement. My stance was intentionally humble. In order to execute the settlement agreement, please provide the company's financial statements and bank records from the past 6 months, so we can accurately verify the compensation amount. This move was a perfectly legitimate, above-board request. To Vivian, providing those financial records meant opening the doors to her core secrets. If she refused, it would count as failure to comply with the settlement, allowing me to apply for court-enforced execution, and verifying her accounts would be an unavoidable part of that process. If she submitted falsified data, she'd face legal consequences for forged evidence and fraud. So regardless of her choice, I would win. And just as expected, Vivian panicked. But Ethan reacted even faster. For the first time in a long while, I heard genuine fear in his voice over the phone. That trembling tone brought me a quiet, wicked sense of satisfaction. Grace, we need to talk. Sure. We met in a quiet cafe. He looked thinner than the last time I saw him, agitation carved clearly between his brows. But when he opened his mouth, he still tried to hold on to the last shred of dignity. It's been going on long enough, you should stop now. He slid a check across the table. This is 1 million. Take it, withdraw everything, and we'll be done. From now on, we owe each other nothing. I glanced at the check and almost laughed. Ethan, are you insulting me or insulting yourself? 8 years of marriage plus 2 children, this is all we're worth to you? His face darkened, patience draining. Grace, don't push your luck. Everything between Vivian and me is normal business interaction. I stood up, picking up my bag. If you're so goddamn powerful, why are you here begging me? Who's the coward now? Then I leaned forward slightly. Go back and discuss this with her. I want 5 million, and the 2 houses transferred to me immediately. And you must voluntarily give up custody. You're delusional. Where am I supposed to find 5 million for you? I tapped my ear casually. Why so narrow-minded? Sell something. You and Vivian can earn it back in no time. Shut up. Every person in the cafe was staring at us. Ethan shut his eyes and gritted his teeth. And what good does this do you? If I'm finished, the kids' futures are finished too. I looked at him calmly, without a shred of pity in my eyes. You're mistaken about 2 things, I said calmly. First, a child's future should never be built on a mother's sacrifice and a father's betrayal. Second, even without you, I am fully capable of raising them and giving them a world of their own. Ethan stepped forward and grabbed my arm in panic. Grace, we've known each other for 10 years. You're not this kind of person. Seeing you so calculating now, honestly, it scares me. 10 years? I repeated, laughing bitterly. Yes, 10 of the most precious years of my life, wasted on a man who turned out to be absolute garbage. My voice shook slightly. In the final months of my pregnancy, when I needed my husband the most, you didn't just cut off our household expenses, you brazenly flew around with that woman, living like a couple on vacation. You hid the assets flawlessly too, because you assumed I was powerless to fight back. Isn't that right? I took a step toward him, looking him dead in the eye with cold mockery. But you forgot something. Karma always comes back around, and your retribution isn't fate, it's me. The wife you swore to spend your life with. I'll be the one to show you what true despair feels like. I didn't bother wasting another word. I turned on my heel and walked out. No one knew how long I'd waited for this day. Just imagining the 2 of them falling into the abyss together made my heart surge with excitement. Maybe in other people's eyes, I really was sick. Incurably sick. Because from the flames of revenge, I tasted a pleasure I'd never felt before. Never underestimate a housewife. We know the deepest corners of daily life, places you've never touched, places that can turn into absolute hell. And once we decide to fight back, we burn every bridge behind us. We rise only by walking straight toward death. Just as expected, Vivian refused my request for financial records, claiming they involved trade secrets. It seemed all channels for negotiation were completely blocked. A dead end? No, at this point, every dead end became a path forward. So I went back to my divorce lawyer and began drafting a petition for a formal court investigation. Your Honor, in the previous divorce proceedings, the true whereabouts of the marital assets were not fully clarified. Moreover, the alleged business losses mentioned by third-party Vivian Way in her related compensation dispute may be fabricated. To prevent fictional debts, we request a full investigation into the financial records of Miss Way's company from its establishment to the present, including all accounting books, vouchers, bank statements, and tax filings. The applicant has no other means of obtaining this evidence, and it is crucial for determining marital property division. When the court's investigation order was delivered to Vivian's company, she and Ethan finally panicked. Only then did they realize that the compensation agreement they thought was humiliating had been, in fact, the carefully laid trap that led them straight into my trap. The next second, my phone exploded with dozens of frantic voice messages. Grace, must you really go this far? We can give you half of the money we have, 60% even. Just cancel the application. Cancel it now. People like them only bow when the knife is already on their necks. Too late, darling. Now I want everything. As expected, the next day, both the scumbag husband and his mistress stopped me on the path where I picked up and dropped off the kids every day. Vivian's arrogance had completely vanished. Her tone was nearly pleading. Grace, we admit defeat, but we really can't get 10 million in cash. The company doesn't have enough liquidity. Can't you lower it a bit? I held one child by the hand and pushed the stroller with the other, never stopping my pace. 10 million is my bottom line. Both houses must be transferred to me, and custody of the kids belongs to me. That's your last chance. My eyes swept across their pale faces. If we can't reach an agreement today, the next time we meet will be when you're standing at the defendant's bench in court. Ethan rushed forward. Grace, for the sake of our marriage, we really did our best. Coming up with that much cash at once will destroy the company. Give us some time. Or we can pay part of it first and write an IOU for the rest, pay it in installments. I stopped walking and forced myself to think carefully. I really do hate trouble. A long lawsuit followed by a long enforcement period wasn't what I wanted. If I could get 10 million up front, the future for me and the kids would finally be secure. I'd never have to deal with them again. Fine, I finally said. I can accept that plan. But the first payment must be no less than 6 million. For the remaining 4 million, you must provide joint liability guarantors and use Vivian's property as collateral. You'll sign a notarized compulsory execution agreement. If you miss a deadline, I'll apply for immediate enforcement. They exchanged a panicked look and were just about to speak when I cut them off. And you only have 24 hours. By this time tomorrow, if I don't see 6 million in my account, the investigation order goes into effect. The auditors and the court will help me dig through every hidden account and every suspicious transfer you've ever made. Okay, we'll go gather the money immediately. As expected, 24 hours passed, and the message I received wasn't a bank notification, but a completely broken phone call from Ethan. Grace, that bitch Vivian, she ran. She took the last usable funds from the company and ran. His phone was on speaker. My lawyer looked at me, waiting for my reaction. I didn't panic at all, not even a little. I calmly picked up my warm water, took a sip, and spoke into the phone. Ethan, calm down. How much did Vivian take? Which account did she transfer it from? Right now, you need to take every bank statement you can get, plus all records of company seal usage, and go to the Economic Crimes Division of the police. Immediately. I paused, then pressed my tone firmer. This is embezzlement. It has escalated into a criminal offense. Every minute you delay reduces your chance of getting the money back. On the other end, Ethan sounded stunned, completely thrown by the words criminal case. So I should call the police? Really? Yes. Call the police. It's your only option and the correct one. And before and after you report it, notify your finance department to seal all accounting books and electronic records. Until the police and the auditors arrive, the company accounts must be frozen. No one, including you, may touch them. When I hung up, the office fell silent. My lawyer let out a long breath, admiration clear in his eyes. Miss Jing, that was a clean strike straight at the foundation. I curled my lips slightly. 10 years of marriage. I know Ethan too well. He's cunning, but he's also selfish and afraid of trouble. When something this big spins beyond his control, his first instinct is always fear and self-preservation. What happened next moved even faster than I had expected. The police registered the case immediately. The power of criminal investigation was far beyond anything a civil court could do. Bank accounts were frozen, border records locked. A powerful machine began to grind forward. At the same time, financial experts and the audit task force entered both companies for a full forensic review. Under the harsh light of criminal investigation, all the reasonable-looking fog from the previous audit was peeled back layer by layer, and the truth was so ugly it made my skin crawl. Those corporate clients who supposedly stopped working with Ethan? Every single one of them had moved their business to Vivian's company. The so-called financial hardship? Nothing more than Ethan funneling all the profitable contracts and funds through a series of complicated related party transactions and fake contracts. Ethan had been funneling money into Vivian Y's company non-stop. Vivian's company wasn't some independent partner at all. It was a shell Ethan had carefully cultivated on the outside, used to swallow up the marital assets that legally belonged to both of us. The most ironic part was that Vivian's escape wasn't impulsive. The investigation showed she had already been quietly transferring assets into overseas accounts for a while. This time, she simply realized the scheme was about to be exposed and pulled the net early, choosing to flee alone and leaving Ethan behind as the one on shore to draw all the fire. The final court hearing held no suspense. Ethan sat at the defendant's bench, his face ashen, looking like a puppet whose strings had been cut, lifeless and hollow. The judge's verdict was solemn and unmistakably clear. Defendant Ethan Zhou, during the marriage with the plaintiff Grace Jian, committed major marital misconduct with third-party Vivian Wei and maliciously transferred and concealed marital assets, constituting extremely serious circumstances. The court rules as follows. 1. The marriage between plaintiff Grace Jiang and defendant Ethan Zhou is hereby dissolved. 2. Their 2 children shall be raised by the plaintiff. The defendant shall pay child support totaling 20,000 yuan per month until each child turns 18. 3. The 2 properties registered under both parties' names, purchased during the marriage, are awarded in full to the plaintiff. 4. The defendant shall compensate the plaintiff with 800,000 yuan for divorce-related damages. 5. All marital assets recovered from the third party, Vivian Wei, amounting to more than 8 million yuan, are awarded entirely to the plaintiff. Additionally, the judge continued, defendant Vivian Wei is convicted of embezzlement and is sentenced to 7 years in prison. Defendant Ethan Zhou, who played a secondary role in the offense and cooperated after being apprehended, is convicted of embezzlement and sentenced to 3 years in prison, suspended for 4 years. When the gavel fell, Ethan was not taken into custody due to the suspended sentence, but he had lost everything. With a criminal record on his back, his future was nothing but darkness. Vivian was taken away immediately by the bailiffs. She looked back at Ethan with a final glance, filled with despair. And with that, the ridiculous connection between the 2 of them came to its pathetic end. A year later, I was sitting in the yard of our new home, enjoying the sun with my children. Life was quiet and full. My phone buzzed, a text from an unfamiliar number. Go back. Grace. I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Can you give me one more chance? Let the kids have a complete home. I read it once. I didn't reply. I simply blocked the number. Every sin and every punishment had already settled in the dust. The sunlight poured over us, warm, bright, and fair.